So, how does it work when someone goes in your dispensary? Can they like stock up like it's Costco?
I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want my environment to be a product of me.
Prestige Living Podcast. So with that, who do you want to be?
Hello, welcome to Prestige Living, your local podcast that delivers the platform of young, ambitious leaders in the community who are making strides to sustain their own destiny, the anti-W-2 employees who are creating the businesses they want to work for. I'm your host, Jay O'Brien, here with your co-host, Jordan Wilson.
Thank you.
And Jordan, what do we got today?
Well, Jay, one of the themes that we always talk about and that we hear from our guests is risk-taking. Each business owner takes a risk when they decide to ditch that W-2 job and they go out and they start their own business. Our guest today has had to face a unique set of challenges and has faced risks that some of our other guests may not have encountered as of yet. Our guest today is Adrian Gonzalez. He is the founder of the medical cannabis dispensary, Orange County's Patient Care. Opening its doors in 2010, OCPC as it's known, it's aiming to change the perception of what a dispensary looks and feels like to its patients, as well as the role it plays in the community. So let's welcome a friend of mine, Adrian. Hi.
How you doing, guys? Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being
Adrian,
here.
good to have you. So you're the weed guy.
I'm the weed guy.
So how long you been doing this?
So I've been doing it now for about 5 years. I originally got into it back in 2010 and have been now successfully operating the dispensary for about 5 years now.
Okay, and have the laws changed much from 2010 to now?
The laws have changed. They have a lot in a federal level and a state level as well. What it was when we first originally started back in 2010 is a completely different industry now that it is. As far as Proposition 215, which is the overall ballot measure for medical marijuana, that hasn't changed a lot. But what the states, what the counties, and what federal law require has changed dramatically.
Interesting. So, yeah, I've heard of certain shops getting shut down kind of unexpectedly. It's like a little bit sporadic. And just for the very minimal exposure that I've had to it, it's almost like, you know, it's cool, but it's also kind of on the hush-hush. So, I mean, are these locations that you publicly say, hey, we're located here, or come in for this or that, or is it still kind of, you keep it under wraps?
No, we openly advertise for what we do and what we are. That was the hush-hush was when we originally started. Even then, though, we still always came out with what it was. We came in with a completely different model in the medical marijuana industry. We didn't want to have this whole Cypress Hill, Snoop Dogg kind of look and feel that a lot of them have nowadays. So we kind of came up with the whole different idea of we need to get away from that. We need it to be more of a medical marijuana rather than a recreational, even though recreational is not a bad part of the industry as well, but in the state of California, it is a medical, and a lot of collectives around California, you see it kind of going away from the whole medical part of it.
Okay, so for someone to go in and buy products in your dispensaries, they've got to have a medical marijuana card. So
Exactly.
some sort of clearance, right?
Yes.
So what does it take to get one of those?
So to get one of those, you have to go to a medical marijuana doctor. A lot of doctors now recommend some documentation of any previous ailments that you have or current ailments that you have. Then those doctors will let you know whether you qualify for the card or not. And when you do, you get a medical marijuana license that's good for 1 year. Once you have that license, then you're free to go to any of the dispensaries around your area or in California. You cannot, it has to be in the state of California.
And what are the limits on quantities? Like if you go in there, you know, we go to the Angels game, you can only buy 2 beers at a time.
2 beers
you know?
per idea. It's
and
crazy.
that's it, you know?
Right.
So how does it work when someone goes in your dispensary? Can they like stock up like it's Costco?
They can, but they can't up to a certain point. A lot of the regulation has kind of been left behind for some of the shop owners to kind of regulate their own business the way that you need to do it. So legally, we're able to sell a half a pound of cannabis to a patient per day. But now, as a professional collective owner, if you see someone who's coming in for that type of quantity on a regular basis, we obviously know what's going on.
Right.
So then it is up to you, up to the actual dispensary, to the collective and their policies, how they're going to limit that.
Okay, so just to be an advocate to capitalism and whatnot, if I were this business owner of a dispensary and someone came in and bought half a pound every day, why not just look the other way and say, I don't care what you do with that, I'm making money?
You can, and a lot of them do. A lot of them do out there, which is why there's this huge negative stigma on what we do, which is why we're having all these problems with state and federal law and county laws. It happens every day. It happens at many other dispensaries. You can, but at the end of the day, it's where do you want to be? What is the business model and what you're trying to do? How are you going to deal with that within your own business is how we kind of look at it.
So you feel like, is it maybe that you feel like there's a social responsibility in order where you're looking at people coming in and saying, hey, I know what this guy's doing, and because I'm not an advocate for that, I'm going to more or less cut this guy off because I know what's happening?
Absolutely. And we and in the shops that we have, that's exactly how we operate. We have systems that track how much you're buying, how often you're coming in, and if we ever have any suspicion of you outsourcing it on your own outside of the store, we have to cut you from the collective. We ban all patients, any type of suspicious activity, any of those types of things we have a zero tolerance for. So.
And can people smoke it there?
No. We do not allow any smoking inside the facilities. There are other collectives that do allow it. It is somewhat frowned upon. It is a very touchy subject. I know in San Francisco, for example, there's a lot of dispensaries there where you are allowed to smoke. You are allowed to smoke on the premises. But I know here in Orange County, it's really frowned upon. So that kind of goes back into the level of where do you want to set yourself aside from all these other collectives in the area? Do you want to be the problem or do you want to be the solution? And we've always tried being that solution.
So Adrian, take us back to 2010. What made you decide that this was the business that you were going to start?
Okay. Well, back in 2010, before this, I was working with my family. We do have, as you guys know, a proving food restaurant in Fountain Valley / Huntington Beach. And I was doing that for a while. And I liked it. I enjoyed it. It was a family business that we were doing. But there was always something more that was calling me out to. It wasn't what I wanted to do. I didn't want to stay in the service industry. But what really changed everything for me was right around that time in 2010, I had my girlfriend at that time. She had epilepsy. Okay. And we struggled with so many different kinds of medications, prescription medications over a 3-year period that towards the end of 2010, the change of who she was as opposed to who I met, was a completely different person compared to night and day. So then we started researching into alternative medication, and medical marijuana being one of them. So we went to a medical marijuana doctor. We both got our licenses. I came out as like a caregiver for her. And from that point on, we just started going to other dispensaries at that time, back in 2010. There wasn't a whole lot of regulation. So we went, and as we were shopping around, seeing the different types of collectives around the area, it was just such a bad influence. It was, thugs behind the counters, unprofessionalism, just very unsafe environments. And it almost felt to where we were ashamed of doing this, of having to resort to medical marijuana. There were times where I didn't even feel safe with her going to pick up her medication on her own without me. Whether it was feeling we were going to get mugged in the parking lot or we were just being sold by some thug behind the counter. So at that point is where the whole idea came. I had researched a little bit about the industry, and that's when I came out and I said, you know what, we shouldn't have to feel this way. Why can't there be a medical marijuana collective where you shouldn't have to hide, where it's maybe like the Tiffany's of collectives? There's a whole nother side to this industry, and at that point in time, we were only seeing the negative. We only felt the negative. So I wanted to bring out the positive of the industry.
That's super progressive and really admirable. So I have a couple questions on that because it raises a couple A couple questions regarding location. So I would imagine that for most of these buildings, leases of office space or retail space or whatever that it is, like you couldn't open up a dispensary next to Whole Foods in Irvine, I would imagine, right?
Exactly.
So to a certain extent, the landlords that will allow you to, and I have no idea about the zoning issues or if there are any or anything like that, but I would imagine there's some sort of restrictions that kind of filter you to certain areas. Is that correct?
Yes. So back then in 2010, there wasn't a whole lot of restriction. It was just a simple plain out, no, you are a drug dealer, get out. We don't want you here. We got laughed at the phone. We couldn't get through a phone call without being laughed at or called the worst names possible. And that was initially the hardest part of trying to find a location. We looked all around Orange County. We researched the laws. We saw that Santa Ana was a little bit more open to the idea, but it was more so that there were a few more other collectives in that area. So we started just kind of looking around the area, and fortunately we got lucky with where our current location is now in Santa Ana. But at the same time, I did a lot of research into where it was going to be. I tried to foresee the future and where the industry was going to go, and where, if they did end up regulating it in certain areas, where was it going to be? We knew that it was never going to be on the street corner next to 7-Eleven. It was going to be in some light industrial area, so that's where we kind of focused all of our power. We did end up getting lucky. We found a landlord who was completely okay with it. She was also a patient of ours. And she was a great opportunity for us, and we leased out with her for about 2 years, and then the time came where she decided to put the building up for sale, and that's when we came in and we bought it for her. So now we are owner occupied. So the whole aspect of it has really changed nowadays as far as zoning and whatnot. Yes, now cities are kind of jumping on board. They've now realized, hey, this industry's here, it's here to stay, and we have to regulate it now. So now they are coming out with certain zoning. They can't be within 500 feet of another dispensary. They can't be within 1,000 feet of schools or parks or a church, any of that sort of thing. So you have seen a huge change. And now landlords, when you call a landlord, hey, we're interested in a medical marijuana, you give them the spiel. Now it's like, okay, well, you're the 10th caller we've had on this listing. And so now it's a completely different industry than it was back in 2010.
So back in 2010, this is a question I ask most of the guests: is you branch out and you want to start your own business. How was your family, your friends? Like, how was your support system when you kind of let them know that this was your plan, that this is what you wanted to do?
So my support system was really, really good, actually. I'm very big on family. Family to me is the most important thing. And there's no way I could have gone through this without my family being supportive. My parents in the beginning, they were extremely, extremely iffy about the decision that I had made. But they supported me. And then after a few months of the opening, it was tough. Back then it was when it was federally illegal. So the feds were coming in and raiding dispensaries and coming in and taking product, taking money, arresting people. It's not like that now, but it was a tough time. And the biggest fear, I think, with them was that they wanted to make sure that I was going to be okay. And even though I knew I was taking a big risk, the most important thing was my support system. My brother was on board with me. My parents were on board with me, and my close friends around me were somewhat on board with me. So I had a really good support system. And to be honest, if it wasn't for them, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't be successful at whatever I chose to do if I didn't have my family on board.
Do you think it was easier for your family, especially your parents, to be supportive of you, seeing what your then girlfriend was going through? You said with those 3 years, like seeing firsthand experience, like, this is a legitimate medication for some people with certain types of diseases?
Absolutely. They always saw the benefits in it. And the truth is I did bring it up. I remember before 2010 through 2009, 2008, 2007, reading up briefly, hearing about that it's legal and whatnot. And, so they definitely saw the benefits of it, but they also saw the very negative part of it. Because back then, any avenue of social media that advertised or talked, even briefly mentioned anything about medical marijuana was nothing but negative. So definitely they were worried, but yes, definitely with her having that condition absolutely helped them to see the true benefits of it. And running the store the way that I did and the way that I do till this day is definitely showed them that we're not in for it. We're not into it for the money or simply just to just to sell a half pound a day to everybody that comes in the door. That's not what we're about.
How much is a half pound?
It all depends on, we don't do that. We actually don't, we don't allow that. We limit you to an ounce depending on your ailments and 2 ounces a day. But again, if you come in today to any one of our locations and you pick up an ounce or 2 and you come back in tomorrow, we will flag you and we will will make sure it doesn't happen. You come in again within a 1 week and you try to make a purchase of that sort, we will ban you. We're strict on our guidelines. We're strict on our rules. And I've had a lot of people in the industry as well, people who I know, and they say, why? What does it matter? We're legally able to sell this much. It doesn't matter. I mean, I know what's going on out there, and I know that no one can medicate on 2 ounces a day. It's just not, if you are, wow.
So I have a couple questions. You said that you bought the building that you were leasing out for 2 years. When you buy a building like that, does it require all cash? Is someone lending money for an operation like that?
Well, what we do is, again, so we structured our whole collectives as a corporation that is completely legal. We pay all of our state and federal taxes, our county taxes, the whole thing. So we actually do have paperwork that allows us to do things of that sort. It's definitely tricky. It takes a lot longer than the normal purchase process would go through, but it's doable if you do it the right way. We've always had an open book standard. Our local city comes in, they inspect us, they look at us from time to time. We've always had an open door policy to anybody who's had any questions because we're always trying to set that standard.
So you have one location right now in Santa Ana?
Yes, in Santa Ana I have one location.
Do you have locations in other cities too?
I do. I have other locations in other cities. I really don't want to say how many and where.
Okay.
But I do. But Santa Ana's been the big one. Santa Ana is our mothership, sort of say. Santa Ana has been the biggest one. Even though we operate any other location that we have the same way, the Santa Ana has been the biggest one for us because it's been like the stepping stone. It's been the one that everyone tends to know about, that tends to use as an example of how they should run it or why this is going on, things of that sort.
Okay, so when you mentioned earlier the Tiffany's of dispensaries, give me an idea as to what the look and feel is of the Santa Ana dispensary. So when someone walks in, what does it look like? Are there a variety of products? I've never even been in one of these, but I've been to like cafes in Amsterdam where there's like brownies and like there's a variety of different products. Like how does this look? What's the whole aesthetics of the place? Okay,
well, let's start first with some of the collectives out there that are just picture a 200 to 500 square foot building where you throw a couple display cases in there, you put some rap music on, a couple Bob Marley posters up, and you start shop. You open up shop. That is the majority of some of the shops around California, so that local area, things of that sort. We operate completely differently. When you walk in, you'll have a clean, safe environment. Completely. We have. We don't do any of the poster things. We have, hardwood floors, new paint, soothing music. We hire designers to come in and do the locations. We hire professional contractors that work with the city to get the proper licenses when we do any construction. So when you would walk in, it would basically be like a very nice upscale waiting room. And from there, once you get checked in with the receptionist, you then come into the showroom, which that's where all the product would be. And as far as when you get in there, everything is extremely upscale. We have display cases in there, but again, designers come in. We do, we've taken ideas from other companies or other things that we've seen online that we like. For example, we have this wooden backdrop that we designed and had built from scratch, and they're used as cabinets, but I mean, it's just absolutely beautiful the way it looks and just ties in the whole dispensary. And as far as products go, we have anything that you can put marijuana in, we basically have it. So that goes from the actual smoking product in itself, the marijuana itself, that all the way to any drinks that you can think of. So coffee, energy drinks, teas, sodas, we have all that. And as far as edibles go, you name it, we have it. We have the Rice Krispies, we have brownies, goldfish, peach O's, Snickers bars. I mean, you name it, we have it. And it's something that we've tried to always expand on. We're also known as for having some of the bigger edible sections, and it's because we feel that we've been able to target a certain type of patient base because of the amount of product that we have, and we're not just catering to a certain age group, I guess you could say.
Adrian, I noticed on your website makes mention of a code of conduct as far as the shop and its place in the community. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. So the code of conduct goes kind of back to how you decide to run your own business. You can be someone who's just cutting corners and just trying to make a quick buck, or you could be someone who is actually caring for the clientele, the patients, or the guests who are coming into whatever business you have. And that's what we've really structured it around. The customer service. Excuse me. So let me go back, actually. So anybody can have decent product on their shelves. Anybody can have a big dispensary, staffing, whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, what it comes down to is the customer service and how you are with your community, your neighbors, how you treat the people around you. A lot of people forget that in our industry, there is a lot of negative stigma. So unfortunately, if you're getting into this industry, it's what you have to understand, and you have to you have to understand that that's what you're putting yourself in. So if you're going to come in with a negative outlook, if anyone ever questions anything, you're not going to do well. So what we do is, we raise money for kids. We partake in a lot of the foundations in the city of Santa Ana. The customer service is huge. We focus on our patients. We're not there to sell you the biggest thing. We don't want you in and out. Hurry. What do you want? No, we focus on what is wrong with you. What are your ailments? What do you prefer? What don't you prefer? What is it that makes you feel comfortable? What bad experiences have you had? And we focus on them. It's all about the customer service.
So you guys have been open for a while, and just being in Santa Ana in general, that city's gone through major changes since 2010. And, we've already had a number of guests on our show who have businesses in Santa Ana. And, a lot of people from across the county are actually gravitating toward that area for the food, the bars, like all the different businesses that are attracting them there. But from the beginning to now, can you think of maybe a time that there was a really crazy story where maybe there was something that maybe it's not safety related, maybe it is, but where something out of the ordinary or extremely inappropriate happened?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, with our industry in the 5 years that we've been operating, there's been a lot of unfortunate things. Again, because even though we run our operations as professional as possible, following every Proposition 215 guideline that is out there, we still have to take on the negativity from all the other negative dispensaries in the area. So throughout the years, we've been in and out of lawsuits. We've sued the city because they've wrongfully rated us or harassed us, whatever the case may be. As far as safety, we've also been robbed. It's just something that comes with the territory. Of course, throughout the years, we've been able to learn from those robberies and do the best we can to avoid it. But I mean, really, to answer the question is, we've had situations where the city has come in wrongfully with local PD and shut us down sat down the staff and harassed everybody, called us drug dealers. There was one specific incident where it was just last July. They came in and shut us down. They threw the staff members in a paddy wagon, took them straight down to this Santa Ana, booked them and held them for 17 hours, just harassing them. Wrongful, just the list goes on of things that the city has done in order to try to shut us down. And, it's tough. So
how do you seek justice for something like that?
At this current point, what we've done is we've always gone back and litigated against them. And we've been extremely successful in the past 5 years. Every single time something like this happens, we obviously litigate against them. And then after a month or so, the charges get dropped. Then, it's a cat and mouse game. The city finds a loophole, so they come in and try to shut the dispensaries down, the ones who are operating legally. And then we sue them back for what they did, which was improper. They back off for a few months. Then a few months later, they find another reason. They come back. So, it's been an ongoing thing for about 5 years.
It's kind of funny because when you think about a city and stimulating a local economy, you think that an influx of money for any business is extremely positive. And for something that is legal and is only growing more and more to be socially acceptable, it's fascinating to me that a city would want to put a stop to it, especially when you're paying taxes in that city and
I was just
contributing.
He's already mentioned that he pays all the taxes and does all that.
So that we've learned a lot about the business. So I'm curious as to, to Jordan's point earlier, what you were doing prior to 2010. One of the things that we always ask our guests on the show is that, you're completely self-employed. If your business goes under tomorrow or shut down and you are in a high-risk industry, to a certain extent, the income stops, right? So when you decide to take that leap and go out and do something completely self-employed and more or less bet on yourself, when you did that for the first time, did you have liabilities? Did you have expenses? Did you take that risk?
Absolutely.
So how was that in the beginning?
It was tough. It was a tough time, but I knew that I was doing it for the better of my future. Before all of this, I was working with my family at a restaurant that we decided to open back in around 2008, 2007. Before that, I was working in the financial industry, working for Wells Fargo, working for other companies, and it just wasn't what I wanted to do. When I first graduated high school, I went and I remember becoming a notary public. Then I started working for some escrow companies and started doing notaries. Then I went into the mortgage industry. Then I went and started working for the banks, and the banks was great. But after, one specifically was when I was working for Wells Fargo. I was with them for 2.5 years. But after the first year and a half, I just knew that was not what I wanted to do. I was miserable. I was unhappy. I kid you not, I remember the last year and a half that I was there. The last year or so that I was with the company, I would wake up every single day in the morning and the first thing in my mind was like, dear God, not again.
Oh, man.
Okay.
That's awful.
It was awful. It was horrible. And, from that point on, I started then learning like, okay, what is it that I want to do? What is it that I want to do? I was so dependent on, and so I wouldn't say dependent, I was comfortable with the company that I was with. So then finally, after a couple of years, I left that company. I went to another company, Citibank, doing almost the same thing. Within 6 months, in the same position, in the same boat. So I then went with my family. We opened the restaurant. We did that. That was great. But at the same time, it still wasn't what I actually wanted to do. So when I made the decision to get into this industry, the stress, the risk involved was enormous because it wasn't just financial. It wasn't my future. All of those things were a huge part of it. But, I was facing federal time. I was facing federal jail time for what I was going to do. And that was the hardest thing. See, back in 2010, the federal law was still the way it is today, but they were coming in and raiding dispensaries that were in the industry, regardless of the state regulation, regardless of the state law. So even though it was California legal, Fed said, no, it's not. So too bad. Screw you. So that was the hardest struggle. Okay, go ahead.
How is it now?
Now it's state California legal, and the feds have backed off. The feds now say if the state has legal medical marijuana laws, we cannot and will not touch you.
Oh, okay. So there's some level of security there.
Exactly. So now it's more a game between county and state law. Okay. So that was the biggest risk was, I took the financial risk. I saved a little bit of money. I had a small loan also. And that was stressful, but the biggest thing was, I never knew when they were going to come in. I didn't know if they were going to come in. It was just a game of hopscotch. It was one good day. It was literally day by day when I first started.
So how many hours do you think a week you're putting into this? Like from running your business, being there, staffing, administrative work. How much time does this take up every week?
Now or then?
Now.
I've been very fortunate over these past 5 years where I've been able to really grow the business and build my team. So that's a hard question to answer because I am working all day. As Jordan knows, I'm very, very busy, but directly there, working there, I would say 20 to 30 hours max, and 30 being a lot. But that's, I don't deal with a lot of the staffing, a lot of the everyday operations, because I have my managers in place with that. We've been able to grow the business to where now we have our general managers, our assistant managers, our training managers, inventory managers. So we, and everything has a chain of command to where I'm just kind of overall looking down.
You've been able to streamline it.
Exactly.
How many employees roughly do you have?
I have a lot. It would be hard to say. I know. So at the main Santa Ana location, I have roughly about 25. Fluctuates between 25 and 30, depending on how busy we are, the time of the year. But that's just at that. There's a lot of other things, because with the business growing as much as it has, we also have to create company headquarters, corporate offices, things of that sort, in order to help run everything efficiently. So, I have a lot of employees, a lot.
Adrian, where do you see the industry going of the next 5 years, especially with states like, you hear about Denver, they have legalized recreational use. Where do you see the industry in California going?
I see the industry in California going kind of around that area. California is big now, where they're now starting to issue licenses in a whole lot of other cities. Costa Mesa here is, has been talking about issuing a few licenses and whatnot, but their best bet was in 2016 it's going to be legal nationwide. So a lot of cities are now kind of holding back. Their outlook towards it is, why initiate a certain amount of licenses in our city now when in a year the state's going to have to give us guidelines in order to license dispensary owners, and if our laws and guidelines are conflicting with the state laws and guidelines, then that means that the ones who have the current licenses they may have to shut down. So then that means that they're going to come back and sue the city or cause issues and problems. So why put ourselves through that? Let's just give it a year. So where do I see the industry going? I see it going almost like Washington and Colorado, where there's recreational and where there's medical. Like I said, a lot of cities are already issuing licenses. So it's now just going to be from now to the next 5 years, you're going to see a lot of cities kind of issuing licenses in their own ordinances, depending on how the state says whether your county or state can govern it. Depending on how that works will determine the future of the industry. But I do see it going in a positive direction, in a positive way. I've always said for the past 5 years, we were in the front lines. We've been pushing this industry forward, trying to show the positive of the industry, of what this can do, and we're there. Now we're almost there. We're at that finish line, and these next few years, what's going to happen in this industry is going to be really interesting to see. It's going to be all for the better.
That's awesome. So we got a couple more questions for you. This is something I'm always really interested in with any business owner, any entrepreneur. What does your morning routine look like?
Okay. My morning routine, I'm guilty to say and admit this, but my morning routine is not like a lot of people's average morning routine.
Elaborate.
And then I say that because I have, with the growth in the business, I've also been able to expand into real estate, as in buying commercial properties and leasing out property, things of that sort. So I'm kind of all over the place. Today I'm focusing on this, or this week is this, and next week is that. So my morning routine is I'm not one of those 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. in the morning guys. I'm not. Okay. Now I would like to be in the future, but right now I'm not. My morning routine is roughly, I would say I'm up between 7 and 8. If I'm sleeping in, 8:30. Make a cup of coffee, hop in the shower, and get to work, whatever has to do. I try, I sometimes find myself while I'm drinking my cup of coffee that I'm sitting there reading emails and whatnot. But then I realize that I don't like doing that, because then my day turns into more reacting to what's coming in rather than being more as, planning my day ahead and kind of having just a plan for your full day.
We were just talking about this today. I talk about this all the time, being reactive to technology versus productive in what your day is going to be. You can't have your phone on vibrate, and you can't respond to every phone call, every text message like that, because unless you're just sitting there in your office looking at your phone ready for it to ring, it's always going to be an interruption as to what you are doing to be productive. And if you allow those interruptions, you're just going to see your productivity go down the drain. So
absolutely,
I always say, what I do, my phone's, I don't remember the last time my phone was not on silent. Mm-hmm. And I always put it, you can see it right there, face down. Mm-hmm. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see any notifications. I don't want to see any emails. I don't want to hear it, because I will be reactive to it. And so naturally, you schedule times to check those things.
Absolutely.
I'll respond to all the text messages in an hour. I'll respond to all the emails in 2 hours, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And it's better for everyone, and definitely better for your efficiency. Mm-hmm. What is the last item that you gifted to yourself?
Last item I've gifted to myself. Well,
besides showing up here for the podcast.
Besides that shirt.
This is a gift in itself, being here today. I recently just purchased a home. I know Jordan.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Where's your home?
It's in Laguna Hills, out in that area there. So
congrats.
Thank you.
That's a big one.
Yeah, and then before that, I would have to say a couple months back I did I think it was like 8-9 days in Miami, or in Florida. I did 4 days in Key West and 4 days in Miami Beach, and that was a lot of fun. So I still try to, as busy as I am, as much as chaotic as my life is, it's important that I try to remember to enjoy some of it and stay true to that. I can't be work 24/7.
Absolutely.
So
what are 3 things on your bucket list?
3 things on my bucket list. That's a great question. I wish I would have.
We totally switched these questions up
you
today.
You did. Okay. 3 things on my bucket list. I think, let's see, one of them would be to travel more outside of the U.S. Europe, South America, Australia. That's something that I have family in Peru and South America, and I find myself every time I venture out of the U.S., I go to Peru. So that's one thing that I definitely need to get on. Another thing would be, a big fear that I have, a big question that I have is, would I be able to do it all over again? So I think one of my biggest things on my bucket list would be to maybe try to get into another industry, open another type of business, or start some sort of another business and see how far I can take it to see what I'm made of, to test myself a little bit.
That's kind of what we were talking about earlier. Like the entrepreneur feels like they're never done.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your favorite quote or maybe a philosophy that you live by?
I live by the quote, I don't know who said it, but I live by, make your own luck. I don't pity myself. I don't feel sorry for myself, or I try not to. I've had, you're not going to wake up in the morning one day, go on, hear a knock on your front door with the opportunity of a lifetime. Wherever you are in your life, whatever it is that you're doing, if you don't like it, it's up to you to change it. And that's the biggest thing that I learned while I was working in the financial industry, when I was in that position where every single day I woke up in the morning and said, gosh, not again. That was the biggest change in my life, where, I realized whatever you want in this world is out there, and you just have to go and make it happen for yourself. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. You are going to fail. You are going to fall. Your people are going to tell you no. Your friends, your family are going to doubt you, whatever the case is, but you have to keep going. Make your own luck.
Yeah, I completely agree. We always say that the people that work the hardest happen to be the luckiest ones.
Yeah, Tim Smith. I was listening to him speak, and he said, the harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yeah, and it's so true. You absolutely do make your own luck. What's some advice that you would give to yourself, who, let's say your 22-year-old self?
My 22-year-old self, I would have said, hey.
Do you remember 22 years old?
He's like, actually, I am 22.
A long time ago for us.
Not that long. Come on.
10 years, bro.
So what would I tell myself at 22 is to not to settle for what you're comfortable in. That path of, you have to go to school. You have to go to a certain school or get this certain degree. You have to work for this company. And maybe if you work hard enough after all these years, it'll pay off for something like that. No. Whatever you want to do, life is too short. Be happy. Be whatever makes you happy. If that's selling oranges on the side of the freeway, just be happy. Do whatever it is. And don't be an asshole, I guess. And
don't be an asshole. I love that. All right, that's perfect. So, Adrian, thank you so much for being on the show. Tell us, where can people find you? Where can people go to this dispensary? What information can you provide in order for people to get a hold of you?
Okay, well, the name of the dispensary is Orange County's Patient Care. That's the main one in Santa Ana. I'm focusing on that one because this is Orange County. So it's called Orange County's Patient Care. You can go to orangecountie'spatientcare.com. You can go to a website called Weed Maps and type in OCPC. We're off the 55 in Dyer. Opened Monday through Sunday from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Awesome. Again, thank you so much for being on the show. That's Adrian Gonzalez, and you can find him online. We'll have all the information on Prestige Living's Instagram, social media channels, Facebook, and whatnot. Good? Thank you guys. Thank you so much, Adrian.
No problem.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys. It was an honor being here.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
If you would like to be on the Prestige Living podcast or know someone that would be a great guest, go to www.prestigelivingpodcast.com. We'd love to hear your story.
As a reminder to all of our listeners, RE/MAX Prestige services all of Orange County for tenants, buyers, and sellers looking for VIP service, zero pressure, and optimal results. Whether you're looking for your first condo at $150,000 or selling your $5 million luxury home, we are your solution. This week's testimonial comes from Ashley Harlan Bacchus, who writes, "Working with RE/MAX Prestige was a great experience. They were very sharp and knowledgeable and didn't stop working until the deal was done. Sold our house in less than 24 hours and worked hard in helping us find our new place. Pleasure working with you, RE/MAX Prestige." So there you have it, another example of our core philosophy, representing our clients' best interests at all times. Like us on Facebook by searching RE/MAX Prestige, and feel free to reach us online at prestigelivingpodcast.com.